The fluorescent lights in the Judge Advocate General hearing room cast harsh shadows across the evidence table. Harper Sinclair stands at attention before 3 JAG officers, her logistics uniform crisp despite the weight of 19 theft charges pressing down on her shoulders. Behind her, Staff Sergeant Garrett Brennan leans back in his chair with the satisfied expression of a man watching justice finally arrive for someone who deserves it. Specialist Travis Vance sits beside him, arms crossed, while Corporal Wyatt Hayes studies his phone with studied disinterest. Major Stevens arranges the evidence bags with deliberate precision. Each one contains documentation, photographs, security logs, the kind of paper trail that ends careers and begins prison sentences. On the projection screen behind him, frozen security footage shows a blurred figure entering the medical supply room at 0300 hours. The timestamp glows accusingly in the bottom corner. Specialist Sinclair, Major Stevens begins, his voice carrying the practiced neutrality of a prosecutor who already knows the verdict. The evidence is clear. 19 trauma kits, collectively worth $47,000, have disappeared from your assigned inventory over the past 6 weeks. He taps the evidence bags. Security logs indicate your badge accessed the supply room at 0300 hours on multiple occasions. Chain of custody documentation bears your signature. He pauses, letting the weight settle. Do you have an explanation? Harper's chest rises and falls in a measured pattern. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. The breathing rhythm is so automatic she barely registers it anymore, though Major Stevens mistakes her silence for fear. Behind her, Brennan whispers just loud enough to carry across the small room. She's got nothing. Logistics can't even keep track of bandages, let alone $47,000 in gear. Vance snorts. Hayes doesn't look up from his phone, but his shoulders shake with suppressed laughter. The sound fills the spaces between official procedure, turning the hearing into something closer to a public execution than military justice. Colonel Franklin Hayes, the presiding JAG officer and no relation to Corporal Hayes despite sharing a surname, removes his glasses and cleans them with slow deliberation. 28 years of service have taught him to recognize when a case is already decided by the evidence. This appears to be one of those cases. The documentation is thorough, the timeline is clear, the accused is offering no defense. Specialist Sinclair, Colonel Hayes says, replacing his glasses. If you cannot provide a coherent defense, I have no choice but to recommend court-martial proceedings and dishonorable discharge. These are serious charges, federal charges. Do you understand the implications? Yes, sir. Harper's voice is steady, controlled, carrying none of the panic that should accompany facing years in federal prison. Do you have anything to say before I make my recommendation? The silence stretches. Brennan shifts in his seat, preparing to enjoy the final collapse. Vance's smile widens. Even Hayes looks up from his phone, wanting to witness the moment someone finally admits they're beaten. Harper's hands rest at her sides, fingers positioned in a way that looks casual but would allow instant access to cargo pockets if needed. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. When she speaks, her question cuts through the expected script of confession or excuse. Sir, I have one question. She turns slightly, just enough to make eye contact with Brennan. May I ask, Staff Sergeant Brennan, what a nasopharyngeal airway is used for? The room temperature seems to drop several degrees. Brennan's confident expression falters, replaced by confusion that rapidly shifts towards something that might be concern. Major Stevens frowns at the apparent non sequitur. Colonel Hayes leans forward, intrigued despite himself by the unexpected direction. What does that have to do with anything? Brennan demands, his voice losing some of its earlier certainty. Harper doesn't respond. She simply maintains eye contact, waiting. The question hangs in the air like smoke from a discharged weapon, and for the first time since the hearing began, the power dynamic in the room feels uncertain. The freeze-frame moment stretches until Colonel Hayes raises one hand. We'll reconvene this hearing in 72 hours. Specialist Sinclair, you're confined to base pending final determination. Dismissed. As Harper turns to leave, her posture remains regulation perfect, but those who know what to look for might notice the way her fingers curl slightly, as if maintaining pressure on something invisible. Behind her, Brennan exchanges glances with Vance, and for just a moment, their triumph feels less certain than it did 5 minutes ago. The story of how that moment came to pass begins 3 weeks earlier, in the humid Kentucky morning at Fort Campbell's dining facility. The DFAC buzzes with the organized chaos of soldiers fueling up before another day of training, maintenance, and the 1,000 small tasks that keep a military installation running. Harper navigates through the crowd with practiced efficiency, her tray loaded with regulation breakfast and her attention focused on finding an empty table where she can eat in the peaceful anonymity that comes from being just another logistics specialist in a base of thousands. Brennan's boot appears in her path so suddenly she almost doesn't stop in time. The near collision sends orange juice sloshing in her cup, a few drops spilling onto the floor between them. She looks up from the liquid spreading across industrial tile to find three men forming a loose semicircle that blocks her route to the empty tables beyond. "Hold up, logistics." Brennan's voice carries across the immediate area, drawing attention from nearby tables. "See that spill?" He gestures toward the juice with theatrical concern. "Can't have unsafe conditions in the DFS. Somebody could slip." Harper's eyes move from the spill to Brennan's face, registering the calculated nature of the blockade. "I didn't ask." Brennan pulls a dirty rag from his pocket, the kind used for cleaning tables after spills, and extends it toward her like an offering. "Your supply. You clean. That's how it works." He pauses, letting the crowd grow around them. "Unless you want me to report unsafe conditions to your supervisor, failure to maintain proper standards?" Vance moves to her left, Hayes to her right. The formation is casual enough to seem accidental to anyone not paying close attention, but the spacing is precise. Military personnel learn to recognize tactical positioning, and this is textbook crowd control masking as friendly interaction. 50 soldiers are now watching what appears to be a simple conversation but feels like something else entirely. "On your knees, supply princess," Brennan continues, his voice pitched to Carrie. "Show us how logistics serves real soldiers." The proper response, according to regulation and common sense, would be to refuse. To point out that she didn't cause the spill, that this is clear harassment, that Staff Sergeant Brennan is abusing his rank to humiliate a junior enlisted soldier. Harper's mouth opens, and for half a heartbeat the refusal is right there, ready to be deployed with all the righteous authority of someone being wronged in public. Instead, she takes the rag, kneels, begins wiping up the spilled juice while laughter ripples through the gathered crowd like wind through prairie grass. What the crowd doesn't notice, because they're focused on the entertainment of watching someone be put in their place, is the way Harper holds the rag. Her grip mirrors the pressure application technique used for dressing wounds, 3 fingers applying controlled force while the thumb and pinky maintain stability. The motion of wiping follows the exact pattern taught for cleaning blood from treatment areas under field conditions. It's so automatic that she doesn't realize she's doing it until she's halfway through the cleanup and catches herself. Master Sergeant Luis Ortiz, sitting at a corner table with his back to the wall and a clear view of the room, watches the interaction with the attention of someone who spent 22 years in Medical Augmentation Support Force learning to spot details others miss. His coffee goes cold in his cup as he observes the young woman on her knees performing janitorial work with movements that speak of training far beyond basic instruction. Harper's breathing maintains its steady rhythm despite the humiliation. 4 counts in through her nose. 4 counts hold. 4 counts out through her mouth. The pattern is taught in multiple military disciplines, but the precision with which she maintains it while being laughed at suggests conditioning under genuine stress rather than classroom theory. When she stands, the rag properly disposed of and the floor clean, her posture shifts for exactly 1 second into a stance that Ortiz recognizes from casualty carry training. Weight balanced, knees slightly bent, core engaged. Then it's gone, replaced by the neutral military bearing expected of someone in logistics who just learned a public lesson about knowing her place. "Better," Brennan announces to the crowd. "Maybe logistics can learn after all." Harper moves past them without responding, finding a table at the far side of the DFSC where she can eat in the silence that follows shame. But Private First Class Jackson Cole, a young soldier 3 tables over who watched the entire interaction, leans toward his companion with a frown that speaks of moral discomfort. "That's messed up, Sergeant," he says quietly to the NCO at his table, not quite loud enough to be insubordination, but loud enough to be heard. Brennan's attention swivels toward the comment like a predator identifying movement. "You defending her, Cole? She's right there if you think she needs a white knight." Jackson's face flushes, but he doesn't back down entirely. "Just saying it wasn't her spill is all. She can speak for herself." Brennan looks back toward Harper's table, raising his voice. "Can't you? Logistics?" The DFAC has gone quieter now. the entertainment shifting from watching someone be humiliated to seeing if she'll escalate the situation into something that requires official intervention. Harper sets down her fork with careful precision, meets Brennan's eyes across 20 feet of cafeteria space, and delivers her response with the kind of quiet certainty that comes from somewhere deeper than this moment. Some debts are paid in silence, not explanations. The statement makes no immediate sense to most of the listeners. It sounds like the kind of cryptic philosophy that someone trying to sound tough might offer. But Ortiz, still watching from his corner table, sets down his coffee with enough force to rattle the saucer beneath it. He's heard variations of that phrase before, in the kind of places where silence becomes survival and explanations get people killed. Harper returns to her breakfast as if nothing happened. Brennan shakes his head with satisfaction and leads Vance and Hayes out of the DFAC, their morning entertainment concluded. The crowd disperses, conversations resuming their normal rhythm of complaints about duty assignments and speculation about upcoming inspections. If you've ever witnessed someone stay calm under pressure that should break them, hit that like button, because what you're about to see is a masterclass in patience that most people never learn. Subscribe for more stories where the quiet ones turn out to be the most dangerous, and stick around. The reveal is going to blow your mind. The incident establishes a pattern that repeats with variations over the following days. Harper becomes a target not through any action of her own, but through the simple mathematics of unit dynamics. Someone needs to be at the bottom of the hierarchy, and Brennan has decided she'll fill that role. 3 days later, at the base gymnasium's rehabilitation area where soldiers recover from training injuries and maintain physical readiness, Harper works through a series of exercises with the focused intensity of someone rebuilding strength after injury. Her PT routine centers on shoulder mobility and core stability, the kind of maintenance work that looks unremarkable to casual observers, but reveals careful attention to specific muscle groups. Brennan arrives with Vance and Hayes, fresh from regular training and looking for entertainment during their cool-down period. He spots Harper in the middle of a plank hold and alters his path to intersect with her exercise mat. His boot connects with her water bottle hard enough to send it skittering across the rubber floor, clear liquid spreading in a pool that reaches the edge of her mat. Oops. The word drips with false apology. Supply should be more careful with their equipment. Can't have water making the floor slippery. Safety hazard. Harper maintains the plank hold for the remaining 15 seconds of her interval before carefully lowering herself to her knees. She retrieves the water bottle without comment, uses her towel to wipe up the spill, and returns to her exercise routine as if the interruption never occurred. The lack of reaction seems to disappoint Brennan, who exchanges glances with Hayes. Hayes pulls out his phone, angles it to capture Harper attempting push-ups with modified form to accommodate her shoulder rehabilitation. The video will make it look like incompetence rather than injury recovery. He adds a caption before posting to the unit group chat. Logistics Barbie can't even do push-ups right, followed by a crying, laughing emoji. Within minutes, 47 soldiers view the post. 23 react with laugh emojis. 7 comment with variations of mockery about physical standards. What none of them notice, because the camera angle and Hayes' commentary direct attention toward apparent weakness, is the precise control Harper maintains throughout each repetition. Her core stability during the modified push-ups exceeds standard requirements by a significant margin. Her breathing remains disciplined, and during the brief plank hold captured at the end of the video, her body positioning mirrors the stabilization techniques used for maintaining life-saving interventions under combat conditions. Ortiz, seeing the video in the group chat, studies it 3 times with growing certainty that something doesn't align with the presented narrative. He saves the video to his phone for later analysis, though he's not yet sure what he's looking for. The harassment continues to escalate through measured increments that stay just below the threshold requiring official intervention. During a routine supply room inspection 5 days after the DFAC incident, Vance exercises his authority as a specialist with seniority over Harper's recently joined status. He examines her inventory with exaggerated thoroughness, pulling items from their organized positions and questioning her competence in managing medical supplies. "These trauma kits look wrong," he announces, holding up a standard-issue combat application tourniquet. "You even know what this is for? What it's called?" Harper's response comes too quickly, too precisely, before she catches herself. "Standard CAT, Generation 7, applied at the inguinal crease for femoral hemorrhage control, or high on extremities for distal vessel compromise. Windlass system requires 4 full turns for proper..." She stops mid-sentence, recognizing the trap she's walked into. Logistics specialists receive basic familiarization with medical supplies for inventory purposes. but the level of detail she just provided suggests hands-on training that her official record doesn't reflect. Vance's eyes narrow with calculation rather than mockery. Listen to Wikipedia over here. Where'd you learn all that, YouTube? He sets the tourniquet down, but his attention has shifted from casual harassment to genuine curiosity about why a logistics specialist knows proper medical terminology and application techniques. Training materials, Harper offers, her voice carefully neutral now. The supply manuals include usage guidelines. Supply manuals tell you about inguinal creases, Vance challenges, but he doesn't push further. Instead, he files the interaction away as interesting rather than immediately actionable. Later, reviewing the supply room inventory, he'll notice that Harper's organization system groups items by medical priority rather than alphabetical order or stock number, another small indicator of training that doesn't match her supposed background. The pattern repeats across contexts. In the motor pool, Harper demonstrates familiarity with vehicle-mounted medical kits that goes beyond inventory management. During a weapons cleaning session, her hands automatically position in ways that suggest muscle memory from field medicine rather than supply chain logistics. Each incident is small enough to dismiss individually, but Ortiz begins noticing the accumulation. 2 weeks after the initial DFIC incident, Ortiz approaches Harper at the gymnasium during a quiet afternoon when few soldiers are present. She's wrapping her knees after completing her rehabilitation routine, her movements methodical and practiced. He waits until she's finished before speaking, giving her the respect of not interrupting a post-exercise recovery ritual. You hold your water bottle like an intravenous bag, he observes without preamble. You sleep with your boots at 45-degree angles to your bunk, laces tucked. Your locker smells like betadine, not gun oil. Harper looks up from adjusting her knee wraps, her expression carefully controlled. I'm just thorough, Master Sergeant. Ortiz pulls a chair from the nearby equipment area and sits, his posture relaxed but his attention sharp. I did 22 years in MASF, Medical Augmentation Support Force. I know thorough, I also know hiding. He pauses, watching her micro-expressions. Your neck, you keep your hair down, always. Even in 100-degree heat during outdoor formation, when every other female soldier has her hair up in regulation. Your bun style keeps everything covered from your jawline to your collar. Harper's hand moves unconsciously toward her neck, fingers touching the edge of her hair where it covers the skin behind her ear and down to her collar. The gesture is protective, automatic, revealing more than words could about the significance of whatever she's concealing. Regulation allows, she begins. It does, Ortiz interrupts gently. Question is why you never let it up. Not once, not even when you're alone in the gym, not even when the air conditioning breaks and the temperature hits 90 inside the barracks. His voice carries no accusation, just the patient observation of someone who recognizes a pattern. Some scars are private, I understand that. Some are more than scars. The breathing pattern begins again. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. Harper meets Ortiz's eyes with the kind of assessment that suggests she's calculating threat levels and response options with trained precision. Some scars are private, Master Sergeant, she confirms, keeping her voice level. Permission to return to duty? Ortiz nods, standing and replacing the chair. Granted, but Harper... He uses her first name deliberately, a signal of respect rather than familiarity. When you're ready to stop hiding, people like me will be ready to listen, and will stand with you, whatever it is you're carrying. He walks away before she can respond, leaving her alone with the weight of being partially seen by someone who understands what they're looking at, even if they don't yet have all the pieces. The next day, Captain Raymond Reeves from the medical unit posts an announcement on the training board that draws immediate attention from soldiers looking to expand their qualifications. 2 slots have opened in the medical cross-training program, a competitive opportunity that provides advanced first aid certification and potential pathways toward becoming combat medics. Applications are due by end of business Friday, 3 days away. Harper submits her application during the lunch hour, filling out the required forms in the small office adjacent to the supply room where she works. Her handwriting is precise, her answers carefully worded to emphasize her logistics experience managing medical supplies without claiming medical training her official record doesn't reflect. The application is professional, complete, exactly what would be expected from someone seeking legitimate career development. Brennan intercepts her on the way to submit the application to Captain Reeves's office. He's been watching for this, waiting for Harper to reach above what he considers her station. His hand shoots out and snatches the application from her grasp before she can prevent it. What's this? He scans the form with exaggerated interest, his voice carrying to the dozen soldiers in the nearby hallway. Medical cross-training. You think supply clerks get to play doctor? That program is open to all qualified soldiers, Harper responds, reaching for the application. I meet the requirements. Brennan holds it higher, reading aloud in a mocking tone. Special interest in emergency medicine, experience managing medical supplies, desire to serve in advanced medical roles. He laughs, the sound harsh in the confined space. You can barely handle inventory. Medical's not for supply clerks who watch too many hospital shows. He tears the application in half, then quarters, lets the pieces fall like snow between them. Try cosmetology school instead. At least you'd be working with supplies you understand. Vance and Hayes materialize from a nearby office, their timing suggesting they knew this confrontation was coming. They've been coordinating their campaign against Harper with increasing sophistication, and this represents their next escalation. Destroying her application isn't just harassment, it's professional sabotage designed to keep her contained in her current role while they compete for advancement opportunities. Harper watches the torn pieces of her application settle on the floor. Her hands remain at her sides, fingers curled slightly inward in a position that Ortiz would recognize as the ready stance for delivering rapid intervention. But she doesn't reach for Brennan, doesn't raise her voice, doesn't give him the reaction he's clearly seeking. I can submit another application, she says quietly. I have until Friday. Submit 50, Brennan counters. Won't change the fact that you're not qualified. Medical requires precision, competence, things you consistently fail to demonstrate. He steps closer, using his height advantage to loom over her. Stay in your lane, logistics. It's safer for everyone. The hallway crowd disperses as the entertainment concludes, leaving Harper alone with the torn application and the clear message that advancing beyond her current station will face organized resistance. She gathers the pieces carefully, deposits them in a nearby trash receptacle, and returns to her workstation where blank application forms are stored. What none of them know, what the security cameras don't show, is that Harper submits her second application directly to Captain Reeves after duty hours. She hand-delivers it to his office with a brief note requesting confidential review due to workplace harassment. Reeves, a professional who takes cross-training programs seriously, accepts the application and adds a memo to his file about the reported harassment. The machinery of official response begins turning, though slowly enough that immediate consequences won't materialize. Behind the scenes, Vance implements the next phase of his plan with the methodical precision that makes him dangerous. He's noticed patterns in Harper's behavior, the way she organizes supplies, the knowledge she demonstrates about medical equipment. His initial motivation was simple harassment, but now he's identified an opportunity. Medical supply theft has become a lucrative black market throughout various military installations. Trauma kits in particular command high prices because they contain specialized equipment difficult to obtain through civilian channels. Vance has been running a small operation for 3 months, using his access to submit false inventory reports and redirect supplies to a civilian contact who sells them overseas. The operation has netted him nearly $47,000, deposited in careful increments to avoid triggering financial monitoring. Harper's presence as a new logistics specialist created a perfect scapegoat opportunity. Her unfamiliarity with the existing inventory systems, combined with her outsider status in the unit, makes her ideal for blame when the missing supplies are eventually noticed. Vance has been preparing the ground for weeks, creating documentation that will point investigators toward Harper while concealing his own involvement. At 0300 hours on a Tuesday morning, Vance uses Harper's cloned security badge to access the supply room. He's careful about camera angles, keeping his face obscured while his body shape and clothing could reasonably match Harper's profile in low-resolution security footage. The badge clone was simple to create, a quick RFID scan while standing near her in the DFAC. Data transferred to a blank card, easy enough that dozens of soldiers with basic technical knowledge could accomplish it. He loads 19 trauma kits into a military-style duffel bag, each kit worth approximately $2,500 in specialized medical equipment. The inventory system logs the badge access, timestamps it, creates the digital paper trail that will later be used as evidence. Vance takes his time, methodical and confident that he's covered his tracks by pointing them towards someone else. The theft isn't discovered immediately. Harper continues her daily duties, unaware that her professional destruction has been set in motion with bureaucratic precision. She works, she endures Brennan's harassment, she maintains her rehabilitation exercises, and she keeps her hair down, covering the vertical line of ink that runs from behind her ear down her neck, hidden beneath the collar of every uniform she wears. The preliminary JAG hearing happens 3 weeks after the initial DFAC incident, following an investigation that uncovers the missing trauma kits, traces them to security logs, and builds a case that appears solid until examined by someone asking the right questions. Harper receives notice of the charges on a Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, she's standing before Colonel Hayes explaining why she shouldn't face court-martial for theft of government property and sale of controlled medical supplies to unauthorized purchasers. Major Stevens presents evidence with prosecutorial efficiency, photographs of the empty supply shelves where trauma kits should be stored, security logs showing Harper's badge accessing the supply room at 0300 hours on 6 separate occasions over 3 weeks, inventory reports with her signature acknowledging receipt of supplies that are no longer present, financial transaction investigations pending but expected to reveal suspicious deposits. Brennan testifies with practiced sincerity about Harper's repeated failures to maintain proper inventory control. Specialist Sinclair lacks attention to detail, sir. Medical supplies require precision she hasn't demonstrated. I've corrected her work multiple times, warned her about proper protocols. Vance corroborates the testimony, adding his own observations about Harper's apparent incompetence with medical equipment. I specifically instructed her on proper handling of trauma kits, sir. She seemed confused by basic concepts. I documented my concerns with Captain Reeves. The case builds like a wall around her, each piece of evidence another brick in the structure of apparent guilt. Harper listens without visible reaction, her breathing steady, her posture regulation perfect. When given opportunities to defend herself, she declines with variations of, "I respectfully decline to answer at this time, sir." The silence is interpreted as admission. The calm is mistaken for resignation. Even Colonel Hayes, who has presided over hundreds of cases and developed instincts for truth, finds himself convinced by the weight of documentation that appears to tell a clear story of theft motivated by financial pressure and opportunity. Outside the JAG building after the preliminary hearing, Brennan delivers his victory speech for an audience of Vance and Hayes and the handful of soldiers who've gathered to watch the proceedings. His voice carries the satisfaction of someone who believes justice is being served. "Should have stuck to what you're good at, logistics. Oh wait, you're not even good at that." He laughs, and Vance joins in while Hayes records the moment on his phone for later posting to the unit group chat. 48 hours till final hearing. Start packing. Federal prison doesn't have openings for supply clerks, but I hear they need janitors. Harper walks past them without responding. Her hands curl into fists briefly, then release, fingers positioning in that subtle pattern Ortiz noticed weeks ago, the one that suggests muscle memory from performing interventions under pressure. The gesture happens automatically, a stress response that she controls after half a second, returning her hands to neutral carry position. She has 48 hours. 48 hours before the final hearing where Colonel Hayes will recommend court-martial proceedings based on evidence that appears conclusive. 48 hours before dishonorable discharge ends her military career and begins a federal prosecution that could result in years of imprisonment. 48 hours before everything she's been working toward collapses under the weight of a frame-up she hasn't yet figured out how to expose. That night, alone in her barracks room, Harper sits on her bunk and performs maintenance on equipment that doesn't appear anywhere in her official logistics inventory. A combat application tourniquet, personal purchase, that she checks for functionality with practiced movements that speak of hundreds of previous inspections. A small medical kit tucked in the back of her locker, containing supplies organized by priority of use rather than alphabetical order. And beneath her mattress, sealed in a waterproof bag, a challenge coin that she hasn't looked at in 6 months. She pulls it out now, turning it over in her hands, feeling the weight of identity and purpose that she's been forced to hide since arriving at Fort Campbell. The coin bears an emblem that would be recognizable to anyone who served in certain specialized units, an emblem that shouldn't be in the possession of a logistics specialist with 18 months of service. Her fingers trace the engraved letters, MASF-3, Medical Augmentation Support Force, Team 3. Below that, coordinates that mark a place in Takhar Province, Afghanistan. Below that, a date from 2 years ago. And at the bottom, stamped in letters so small they're nearly invisible, a phrase that has become her operating philosophy: not on my watch, 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. Harper returns the coin to its hiding place and begins the careful mental preparation for what needs to happen in the next 48 hours. She's been patient, she's been silent, She's endured harassment and framing and systematic destruction of her professional reputation. But patience has limits. Silence has purpose. And sometimes the only way to expose those who operate in darkness is to let them believe they've won until the moment they discover they've actually revealed themselves completely. Wednesday morning will bring the next phase of her mission, the part where investigation transforms from passive observation to active conclusion. The part where people who thought they were hunters discover they were actually being studied by someone who learned predatory patience in places where mistakes got people killed. The clock on her wall marks time passing, 48 hours becoming 47, becoming 46. Outside her window, Fort Campbell continues its rhythms of training and duty and the 1,000 tasks that keep a military installation functioning. Inside her room, Harper prepares for an outcome that no one except her expects, maintaining the discipline that has kept her alive through situations far more dangerous than a rigged JAG hearing and 3 soldiers who mistook her silence for weakness. The story, as Brennan and Vance and Hayes understand it, is reaching its conclusion with Harper's disgrace and their vindication. But they've made the fundamental error of believing their own narrative while ignoring small details that don't fit. The grip on a rag, the breathing pattern under stress, the medical terminology that appears without thought, the neck that's never exposed, the way someone moves through space when their training runs deeper than their uniform suggests. 48 hours until the final hearing. 48 hours until truth stops hiding behind strategic patience. 48 hours until everyone discovers what happens when you corner someone who never needed rescuing in the first place, who was simply waiting for the right moment to demonstrate exactly who they are when demonstration becomes necessary. The night deepens. Harper's breathing maintains its steady rhythm. And somewhere in the administrative offices of Fort Campbell, security footage sits waiting for someone to ask the right questions about what it actually shows versus what people assume it reveals. Wednesday is coming. The obstacle course incident that will change everything is less than 12 hours away. And the tattoo running from behind Harper's ear down her neck, the one she's kept covered for 3 months, is about to become visible at exactly the moment when visibility serves a purpose greater than her personal comfort. Some battles are won through confrontation, others through patience that outlasts opposition until circumstances create their own resolution. Harper learned the difference in places where choosing wrong meant casualties. She's chosen patience. Wednesday morning will prove whether that choice was wisdom or mistake. Wednesday afternoon arrives with the kind of oppressive humidity that makes every movement feel like swimming through invisible resistance. The obstacle course at Fort Campbell sits under cloudless sky, the sun turning metal obstacles into surfaces too hot to touch comfortably. 50 soldiers from various units gather for mandatory physical training, the kind of cross-unit exercise designed to maintain readiness and break the monotony of specialized training routines. Harper arrives in standard PT uniform, her hair pulled into its customary bun that covers everything from her jawline to below her collar. She's running on 36 hours without real sleep, but the exhaustion doesn't show in her movements as she completes warm-up exercises with the same measured precision she brings to everything else. Brennan watches from his position near the course entrance, pleased that Harper showed up despite facing final JAG proceedings in less than 48 hours. Her presence provides one last opportunity for public humiliation before she disappears into military prison. The obstacle course itself presents challenges ranging from rope climbs to wall scaling to crawling sections designed to test endurance under physical duress. Soldiers rotate through stations in groups of 5, with NCOs positioned at intervals to observe technique and ensure safety protocols. It's routine training, the kind performed thousands of times across military installations without incident. But maintenance schedules are human creations, subject to human error, and the rope station hasn't received its weekly inspection due to administrative oversight. Corporal Davis, a transportation specialist with decent upper body strength and reasonable confidence in his climbing ability, approaches the rope station at approximately 2:15 p.m. The rope hangs 30 feet from a support beam, thick and textured for grip, looking exactly as it has for the past 6 months of training cycles. Davis wraps his hands around it, tests the tension, and begins his ascent with smooth hand-over-hand technique that carries him upward at steady pace. He reaches 20 feet when the rope separates, not dramatically, not with the sudden snap that would provide warning, but with the gradual unraveling of fibers that have been degrading slowly under sun exposure and repeated stress. One moment Davis is climbing confidently. The next he's falling through air that suddenly offers no support, his hands clutching rope that continues separating above him. The landing is catastrophic. Davis hits the ground at an angle that directs force through his lower left leg, and the tibia breaks with an audible crack that carries across the training area. Worse, the femoral artery in his upper thigh tears against bone fragments, and blood begins pulsing out in rhythmic spurts that immediately soak through his PT shorts and pool on the dirt beneath him. The soldiers nearest the incident freeze in that horrible moment between recognition and action, when the brain processes emergency but the body hasn't yet received instructions for response. Someone screams for a medic. Someone else fumbles for their phone to call emergency services. Most simply stand paralyzed while Davis writhes on the ground, his hands reaching toward the leg that's bent at impossible angles. Brennan, who holds senior medical NCO certification and should automatically take charge in medical emergencies, goes pale. His certifications are current on paper, renewed through classroom testing, but his last practical application of emergency trauma care was 7 years ago in a controlled environment with instructors providing guidance. The sight of Davis's compound fracture, the visible bone and the arterial blood, overwhelms his theoretical knowledge with visceral horror. Brennan's voice comes out strangled. We need to wait for ambulances. His hands shake as he pulls out his phone, unable to remember if emergency services is reached by calling 911 or going through base operator. Vance stands beside him, equally frozen. EMTs are 12 minutes out, man is bleeding. He doesn't finish the sentence because Davis's blood loss is accelerating, the pool spreading wider, and 12 minutes suddenly seems like an impossible eternity. Hayes tries to help, driven by panic rather than training. He kneels beside Davis and applies pressure to the leg, but his hand placement is wrong, pressing on venous bleeding while missing the arterial source. Davis tries to sit up, instinct screaming at him to assess his injury, but movement without proper cervical spine stabilization could paralyze him if he sustained neck trauma during the fall. I can't. Hayes's voice breaks as his hands become covered in Davis's blood without slowing the hemorrhage. The crowd thickens. 40 soldiers now, then 50, forming that useless semicircle of witnesses who will later describe the emergency in detail but can't provide intervention in the moment. Phones appear, some calling for help, others recording because documentation has become reflexive in modern military culture. Harper pushes through the crowd without announcement or permission. Her movement is economical, purposeful, carrying the kind of authority that makes soldiers step aside automatically, even though her rank doesn't command that response. She reaches Davis in 3 seconds, her assessment beginning before she's fully kneeling. Move. The single word cuts through the chaos, directed at Hayes, who scrambles backward and leaves space for someone who clearly knows what she's doing. Harper's left hand immediately stabilizes Davis's cervical spine, positioned with precision that suggests thousands of hours of practice. Her fingers spread to support the base of his skull while her palm rests against vertebrae, maintaining neutral alignment that prevents additional injury to potential spinal cord damage. You, she points at Jackson, who's standing frozen 3 feet away. Pressure here. Her right hand indicates the exact location of femoral artery pressure point, high in the inguinal crease where application will control hemorrhage above the injury site. 2 hands, full weight, don't let up. Jackson drops to his knees and follows instructions, his hands positioning where Harper indicated. The blood flow slows but doesn't stop completely. Arterial pressure requires more than manual compression to fully control. Harper's right hand moves to her cargo pocket and extracts a combat application tourniquet, the same CAT Generation 7 device that Vance mocked her about weeks ago. She carries it always, a habit from places where preparedness meant survival. The tourniquet deploys in 2 seconds, wrapping high around Davis's thigh, positioned at the inguinal crease with exactness that matches tactical combat casualty care protocol. Windlass, 4 full turns, lock it. Harper's voice remains steady, controlled, as she rotates the tourniquet's tightening mechanism. Securing the windlass clip, locked. She checks distal pulse, fingers on Davis's ankle, confirming that blood flow has stopped below the tourniquet. Bleeding controlled. Time is 14:07. Mark it. One hand maintains cervical spine stabilization while the other performs rapid assessment. She tears Davis's blood-soaked PT shorts to fully expose the compound fracture, her movements efficient despite the gore. The tibia protrudes through skin, angulated at severe degree that will require surgical intervention, but the immediate threat is hemorrhage control and preventing shock progression. You, she points at Brennan, who's still standing paralyzed. Get your medical bag, traction splint, cervical collar, pressure dressing for the open wound, now. The command voice breaks through Brennan's freeze. He runs toward the medical station kept at the obstacle course for exactly these emergencies, his hands still shaking but following orders from someone who clearly knows how to give them. Harper leans over Davis to check his airway, ensuring breathing isn't compromised. And that's when it happens. The bun holding her hair has loosened during the rapid movement, stressed by the angle of her head and the intensity of her motions. As she straightens to perform circulation check, the bun fails completely. Dark hair swings forward, then falls back across her neck when she turns her head to call for additional assistance. The tattoo becomes visible. A vertical line of black ink running from behind her left ear down the side of her neck, disappearing beneath her collar. But in the seconds before it vanishes again, the design is clear to anyone with proper viewing angle. A medical caduceus symbol positioned just behind her ear. Below that, letters spelling MASF3 in military stencil font. Below that, geographic coordinates, 34.7 DGN, 69.5 DGE. Below that, a date, 12 AUG 19. And at the bottom, just above her collar line, text so small it's barely legible from distance, "Not on my watch." Lieutenant Colonel James Rains, senior flight medic for the 101st Airborne Division, arrived at the obstacle course 3 minutes ago for his own PT session. His position 20 feet from the incident provides perfect viewing angle to see Harper's neck when her hair falls. He's been watching her work with growing recognition. The TCCC protocol is unmistakable. The precision is extraordinary. The command presence is learned through repetition under genuine combat conditions. When the tattoo becomes visible, Rains's face drains of color. His lips move, forming words that don't emerge as sound. The coordinates are burned into his memory from mission briefings and after-action reports. Takhar Province, Afghanistan, 12 August 2019. The date when Medical Augmentation Support Force Team 3 went dark during extraction operations that officially never happened. No, the whisper comes out strangled. That's impossible. He moves forward, pushing through the crowd with the authority of his rank and the urgency of someone who just witnessed a ghost materialize in front of him. By the time he reaches Harper, Brennan has returned with medical equipment, and she's directing the application of traction splint to stabilize the fracture while maintaining her cervical spine hold. "Stand down!" Rains's voice carries command authority that makes every soldier in the area come to attention automatically. "Everyone step back. Give them working space." The crowd retreats 3 steps. Rains approaches the treatment area, kneels on the opposite side of Davis from Harper, and watches her complete the traction splint application with textbook precision. She's coaching Brennan through the procedure, turning this emergency into an impromptu teaching moment because that's what combat medics do. They save the patient in front of them while training those around them to save the next one. Extend the leg gently. That's right. Secure the ankle hitch. Apply mechanical traction until the leg length matches the uninjured side. Perfect. Harper's voice remains calm despite the chaos, despite the blood, despite the tattoo that's now exposed for anyone to see. Rains waits until the traction splint is secured before speaking. MASF3, Takhar Province, 2019. Harper freezes mid-motion, her hand suspended above the cervical collar she was about to apply. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out. When she looks at Rains, her eyes hold the kind of recognition that comes from shared experiences in places where silence becomes mandatory. "You held a tourniquet on Captain Morrison for 4 hours, Rains continues, his voice dropping to conversational level that still carries to the listening crowd. "Under fire, while your team died around you, you sang to him, Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash. You told him about your sister's wedding. You kept him conscious until extraction arrived because you knew if he fell asleep he wouldn't wake up." The silence around the obstacle course has become absolute. 60 soldiers now, all watching, all hearing, all trying to process information that doesn't align with everything they thought they knew about the quiet logistics specialist who's been the target of their mockery for 3 weeks. Brennan's voice breaks the silence, confused and frightened. "What the hell is MASF?" Rains stands, helping Harper gently transfer cervical stabilization responsibility to another arriving medic so she can complete her assessment. His voice carries across the training area with the weight of absolute authority. Medical Augmentation Support Force, 18th Airborne Division, Special Operations Combat Medics. He looks directly at Harper. "The file said killed in action. They told us MASF3 died with their team, all 6 of you. The mission was classified, the casualties were classified, everything was sealed. Harper's challenge coin falls from her cargo pocket as she shifts position, the small metallic disc landing face up in the dirt. Rains picks it up, recognition immediate. The emblem matches his own, though his team number is different. The serial number engraved on the edge reads M3447. The weight is distinctive, heavier than standard challenge coins because MASF coins contain additional elements that serve identification purposes beyond symbolic meaning. This is real. Rains turns the coin over in his fingers, verifying details only someone with proper clearance would know to check. This is... you're real. The ambulance arrives, siren cutting through the afternoon air. EMTs take over patient care from Harper's stabilization, moving Davis onto a backboard with procedures that follow the foundation she already established. The tourniquet time is noted, 14:07, 12 minutes of ischemia time, well within the safe window for limb preservation. The traction splint has reduced the fracture and controlled additional tissue damage. The cervical stabilization prevented potential spinal cord injury. Every intervention was correct, properly sequenced, executed with precision that saved Davis from bleeding out or sustaining permanent paralysis. As the ambulance departs, Rains turns his full attention to Harper. Talk to me. Why logistics? Why hide this? Why let them... He gestures toward Brennan and Vance and Hayes, all three standing pale and confused at the periphery. Why let them treat you like that? Harper stands, her hair still loose around her shoulders, the tattoo visible to everyone now. She makes no attempt to cover it. The time for hiding has concluded. She meets Rains's eyes and delivers the explanation that transforms the past 3 weeks from a parent-victim narrative into something far more calculated. Because medical supplies were disappearing, sir, 19 trauma kits, the kind that kept Captain Morrison alive for 4 hours. The kind that could have saved my team if the ones we received hadn't been counterfeit black market garbage. The words land like artillery strikes. Rains's expression shifts from confusion to understanding to fury in 3 seconds. Brennan takes an involuntary step backward. Vance's face loses all remaining color. Someone was selling them, Harper continues, her voice steady and cold. I needed to find who. Classification sealed my MASF record. I requested logistics assignment here specifically because Fort Campbell had similar patterns. Supplies missing, documentation altered, the same markers we saw before Takar went wrong. She pulls her phone from her other cargo pocket, opens an audio recording application that shows 3 weeks of files, each labeled with dates and times and brief descriptions of content. Every conversation, every admission, 3 weeks of Specialist Vance bragging to his off-base contacts about his side business. Staff Sergeant Brennan covering discrepancies to protect unit reputation. Corporal Hayes knowing and saying nothing because he wanted medical slots they were blocking. The phone screen glows accusingly in the afternoon sun. All recorded, all time-stamped, all backed up with Criminal Investigation Division, all legally obtained under the authority granted to me 8 weeks ago when Medical Command and CID recruited me for exactly this purpose. If you're feeling that justice is coming energy right now, hit that subscribe button because the consequences about to rain down on these three are going to be absolutely deserved. Drop a like if you believe in patience over confrontation, and stick around. The ending is going to restore your faith that the system can work when the right people are running the operation. The emergency meeting convenes 90 minutes later in the JAG building where Harper faced preliminary charges that morning. The conference room holds Colonel Franklin Hayes, Lieutenant Colonel Rains, Harper, Brennan, Vance, Corporal Hayes, and 3 agents from the Army Criminal Investigation Division who've been running surveillance on the medical supply theft ring for 2 months before Harper arrived to accelerate their timeline. Special Agent Miller, lead CID investigator, spreads evidence across the conference table with methodical precision. Security footage, the real footage, showing Vance entering the supply room at 0300 hours over 6 separate occasions. Financial records documenting $47,000 deposited in increments into Vance's account from an overseas buyer. Communication logs between Vance and his supplier contact in Kabul who intended to resell the stolen trauma kits to insurgent groups. And documentation of Brennan's involvement falsifying inventory reports to conceal missing supplies. Specialist Sinclair has been working with CID since her arrival at Fort Campbell 8 weeks ago, Agent Miller explains, his voice professionally neutral. Her logistics assignment was cover for an investigation into medical supply theft that matched patterns from Afghanistan, patterns that contributed to MASF-3 mission failure and casualties. Vance attempts denial, his voice rising with desperation. This is insane. She's a supply clerk. She doesn't have authority. She has full CID investigative authority, Colonel Hayes interrupts, referencing documents Miller provided before the meeting. Granted 8 weeks ago when Medical Command noticed the theft pattern matched Takhar Province losses, confirmed through channels I verified personally before convening this meeting. Brennan's attempted defense collapses before formation. The hearing, the evidence you presented, was real, Harper confirms. You did try to frame me. That's witness tampering and obstruction of justice. Federal charges that carry significant prison time when combined with your knowing participation in supply chain fraud. Corporal Hayes, the third member of the conspiracy, speaks for the first time since entering the room. I didn't know about the selling. I just wanted the medical slot. His voice breaks. I didn't think it would go this far. Raines's response carries no sympathy. You knew they were framing her. You participated in harassment. You helped falsify competency reports. Your motivation doesn't excuse your actions. The consequences arrive with military efficiency. Vance is arrested, placed in pre-trial confinement facing federal charges for theft of government property exceeding $50,000, conspiracy to provide material support to foreign insurgents, fraud against the United States, and obstruction of justice. The prosecution estimates 15 to 20 years in federal prison, and his military career ends with dishonorable discharge that will follow him permanently. Brennan faces court-martial charges for obstruction, witness tampering, falsifying official documents, and conduct unbecoming an NCO. His medical certifications are revoked pending investigation into whether he ever legitimately possessed the competency he claimed. His rank is reduced, his security clearance suspended, and his military career effectively terminated regardless of court-martial outcome. Corporal Hayes receives non-judicial punishment under Article 15, accepting reduction in rank to private, loss of 2 months' pay, and removal from all medical training programs. His record will carry the disciplinary action permanently, eliminating advancement opportunities and likely resulting in involuntary separation at his current contract conclusion. The investigative scope expands. CID raids Vance's off-base storage unit and recovers 14 of the 19 stolen trauma kits before they can be shipped overseas. Financial forensic analysis reveals 4 additional Fort Campbell soldiers with suspicious deposits from the same Kabul supplier, leading to their arrests. 2 civilian contractors who facilitated the black market pipeline face federal charges in civilian court. Within 72 hours, Base Command implements emergency policy changes. All medical supplies now require dual signature accountability. Random audits replace scheduled inspections. An anonymous reporting system launches for fraud and theft concerns. The supply chain security receives comprehensive review extending beyond Fort Campbell to other installations showing similar patterns. 1 week after the obstacle course incident, Fort Campbell's parade ground hosts a formation of 200 soldiers gathered for what's officially described as an integrity recognition ceremony. The morning sun illuminates ranks standing at attention while Colonel Hayes addresses the assembly with formal language that carefully avoids classified details while acknowledging extraordinary service. Specialist Sinclair operated with exceptional professionalism and courage during an extended investigation that exposed serious crimes threatening operational readiness and soldier safety, Hayes announces, reading from prepared remarks that balance recognition with security requirements. Her dedication to duty and commitment to fellow soldiers exemplifies the highest standards of military service. Raines steps forward to present Harper with the combat medical badge she never received after Takhar Province because the mission officially never happened and casualties officially weren't acknowledged. The badge pins to her uniform above ribbons that now include recognition for investigative service and meritorious conduct. The formation applauds with genuine respect, the sound carrying across the parade ground where 3 weeks ago the same soldiers might have ignored or mocked her. Brennan and Vance stand in the formation under guard, required to witness the ceremony before their removal to confinement pending trial. Their faces reflect shame and defeated realization that their perception of power was illusion built on assumptions that Harper systematically dismantled through patience and precision. After the ceremony, Raines finds Harper in the quiet space behind the Medical Command building where soldiers go to decompress after intense experiences. She's removed her uniform jacket, her hair pulled up again, but the tattoo's still visible because she's stopped hiding what no longer needs concealment. You could come back to medical, Raines says without preamble. Active duty or instructor. You're still qualified. Better than qualified. You're exactly what we need teaching the next generation of combat medics. Harper studies her hands. which tremble slightly now that adrenaline has faded and exhaustion catches up with 3 weeks of maintained cover under hostile conditions. I can hold a tourniquet, sir. I can teach others to hold one, but I can't go back to being the one who has to. The admission costs her something. Rains recognizes trauma acknowledgement when he hears it, the difference between capability and psychological capacity, between skill and willingness to employ that skill repeatedly in high-casualty environments. PTSD is legitimate, he responds. No shame in recognizing limits. I know, sir, that's why I'm choosing instructor. I can save more lives by training 100 medics than by being one medic who eventually breaks in the field. She meets his eyes. My team died because supplies failed. I can prevent that by teaching proper technique and exposing corruption. That's where I serve best now. The conversation ends with understanding rather than argument. Some warriors return to combat. Others find different battles that serve the same mission through alternative methods. Harper has chosen her path with the same deliberate calculation she applied to exposing the supply theft ring. Master Sergeant Ortiz approaches as Rains departs, his weathered face reflecting satisfaction at finally having confirmation for suspicions he held for weeks. I knew you were hiding something. Didn't know it was that. You kept watching, kept quiet. Why? Harper asks. Because sometimes the best warriors are the ones who've learned when not to fight, Ortiz replies. You picked your battle. You won it clean. That's wisdom most soldiers never develop. Private Jackson, newly accepted to the medical cross-training program that now has 2 open slots after Brennan and Corporal Hayes were removed, finds Harper later that afternoon. His young face reflects genuine remorse mixed with determination to do better. Ma'am, I should have stood up louder when they were harassing you. Harper shakes her head. You stood up when it mattered, at that obstacle course. You followed my commands without hesitation. That's what saves lives in emergencies. People who can set aside ego and follow expertise when seconds matter. Will you be my instructor when the program starts? Jackson asks. If you're ready to learn that medicine isn't about glory, it's about everyone going home. It's about the tourniquets that work and the supplies that don't fail and the training that becomes automatic when thinking stops being possible. Jackson nods, understanding settling into commitment. He'll be one of the good ones, Harper thinks. The ones who learn not just technique, but purpose. Not just procedure, but responsibility. 3 days later, Harper walks across Fort Campbell in PT uniform with her hair pulled up, tattoo fully visible for the first time since arriving 8 weeks ago. Soldiers salute as she passes, not because regulation requires it for her rank, but because respect transcends formal military courtesy when someone has earned it through demonstrated capability under pressure. She stops at the medical supply room, now completely reorganized under CID supervision with new security measures and accountability procedures that make the kind of theft Vance accomplished effectively impossible. The logbook sits open on the counter, pages filled with dual signatures and timestamp verification. Harper signs the instructor authorization line in her new capacity. Harper Sinclair, Medical Training Instructor, Fort Campbell Combat Readiness Division. The title carries weight beyond rank. Instructors shape the next generation of soldiers, passing knowledge forward so the lessons learned through sacrifice aren't lost when individual warriors move on from active service. Harper will teach TCCC protocol to young medics who need to learn that supplies matter, that attention to detail saves lives, that the difference between someone bleeding out or surviving often comes down to equipment that works and training that holds under pressure. Her first class begins Monday morning. 20 soldiers who will learn tourniquet application, wound packing, airway management, all the skills that separate preventable death from survivable injury. She's prepared lesson plans that emphasize practical application over theoretical knowledge, hands-on repetition over classroom memorization, because combat medicine happens when thinking stops and training takes over. The small office assigned to her contains a desk, filing cabinet, and wall space where she can display teaching materials. She hangs her MASF challenge coin on the wall, encased in a shadow box with a simple placard. Not on my watch, MASF 3, Takar Province, 12 August 2019. Below it, she places a photograph of Captain Morrison, recovered and serving again after the 4-hour tourniquet hold saved his life. He sent the photo with a note. Because of you, I got to watch my daughter graduate high school. Because of you, someone else's family stayed whole. Keep teaching them. Keep passing it forward. The legacy extends beyond individual gratitude. Medical Command creates an annual award in Harper's name, the Sinclair Award for Integrity Under Fire, given to soldiers who demonstrate exceptional moral courage in difficult circumstances. The award comes with a replica of her MASF coin and a scholarship for advanced medical training. 3 soldiers receive it the first year. The number will grow as the story spreads and standards are established. That evening, Harper sits alone in her office after the first day of instructor orientation, reviewing student files for Monday's initial class. Her hands are steady now. The trembling is past. Outside the window, Fort Campbell continues its endless rhythm of training and preparation, soldiers becoming ready for missions they hope never come but prepare for anyway, because readiness is the price of security. She thinks about Takar Province, about teammates who didn't come home, about Captain Morrison singing off-key while she held pressure and told stories to keep him conscious, about the moment when counterfeit tourniquets failed and she had to become the equipment that didn't exist, her hands and her will and her refusal to accept that preventable death was acceptable outcome. She thinks about Brennan and Vance and Hayes, who saw weakness where strength existed, who mistook silence for inability, who believed their assumptions more readily than they questioned their perceptions. Their careers are finished, their futures diminished. Justice served through patience rather than confrontation. And she thinks about the soldiers she'll teach Monday morning, young people who need to learn that medicine in combat is different from medicine in hospitals, that perfect conditions never exist when they're needed most, that the tourniquet you carry might be the difference between someone's family staying whole or forever broken. Her internal voice, the one that's guided her through impossible situations and carried her past the point where most people would have broken, speaks with quiet certainty about lessons learned. They wanted me small, so I stayed small. They wanted me silent, so I stayed silent. They wanted me gone, so I let them think I was going. But strength isn't volume. It's discipline. It's patience. It's doing the right thing when no one is clapping and no one is watching and no one will know until the moment when knowing matters more than anything else. I wore their contempt like armor. I carried their mockery like a rucksack. Because I knew that truth doesn't need defending. It just needs time and opportunity and the willingness to let it emerge when emergence serves purpose. My team died because someone valued profit over lives. I couldn't bring them back. But I could make absolutely certain no other medic opens a trauma kit under fire and finds garbage instead of gear. I could make certain the supply chains work, and the equipment functions, and the training prepares people for reality instead of theory. Justice isn't loud, it's patient. It's a tourniquet held for 4 hours. It's a mission completed even when they declare you dead. It's proving that the ones they underestimate are exactly the ones they should have respected. Monday morning arrives. Harper stands before 20 young soldiers in a classroom designed for practical medical training. Behind her, a whiteboard displays the day's lesson objectives. On her desk, her MASF coin catches morning light. The students watch with attention that comes from having heard stories about the instructor who took down a black market ring while being harassed, who saved a life during obstacle course training, who turned out to be everything no one expected. Combat medicine is different from civilian emergency care, Harper begins, her voice carrying authority earned through experience rather than granted by rank. In combat, you're often alone with the casualty. Resources are limited. Time is critical. The difference between life and death frequently comes down to one person knowing what to do and having the courage to do it despite fear and chaos and the 1,000 reasons why it would be easier to wait for someone else. She demonstrates tourniquet application with practiced precision. 20 students mirror her movements, learning sequences that must become automatic when thinking stops. You'll apply this in darkness, under stress, when your hands shake. Perfect conditions won't exist, but the need will be absolute. 1 year later, Harper has trained 247 combat medics. Casualty survival rates show measurable improvement. The woman they mocked became the standard they're measured against. In her office, a challenge coin hangs beneath words that became teaching philosophy. Not on my watch. Some battles are won through confrontation, others through patience that outlasts opposition. Harper chose patience. Justice was served, corruption exposed, systems reformed. The story is complete. And the simple truth remains, strength isn't always loud, and the most dangerous people are the ones who wait for exactly the right moment to show precisely who they are.